Sup, hey review family, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morse, the review guy, reviewing music for the love of music, and I'm back again to bring you another video. And in this one I'm going to be covering the new Asking Alexandria record entitled Like a House on Fire. Sixth studio-length album by the English metal and rock band Asking Alexandria, and I feel like I'm obligated to, it's a necessity to at least address the elephant in the room that is their stylistic progression, their artistic representation, the fact their lineup has been all over the place, and everything else in between. I do consider myself a continuous fan of the band. I own all of their discography up until this point on physical copy, but I do believe that my opinion deviates slightly from a lot of other even fans. On their last record, their self-titled album, when Danny Worsnop came back into the band after being replaced by Denis Stoff for the Black album, they started to embrace more hard rock roots, more melodic roots, the very arena rock sized drum work, the buff guitar work, Danny embracing a lot more gruff singing as opposed to screams and growls that were present on a lot of their early material, specifically their first two records. But for people to act like this hasn't always been an influence, have you not heard their record From Death to Destiny, probably one of their most acclaimed records, my personal favorite in their entire discography? Have you heard the track Moving On from that record? That is literally an arena rock anthem, intentionally. Danny Worsnop obviously has the influence from his solo country work and his hard rock supergroup We Are Harlot. Bottom line, while I didn't necessarily like every bit of the risks that were taken on their self-titled record, I don't think that the track with Bing X is a very good track. And a lot of these sounds can be considered derivative, like When the Lights Come On, it's basically a Fall Out Boy ripoff. Straight down to the structure of the verse, the delivery, the chorus, it is so Fall Out Boy. Specifically, my songs Know What You Did in the Dark. But on tracks like Eve and Room 138 and even some of the chorus work, you could see these trace elements of their past material coming in full force. And even though this new sound was blossoming and coming into full fruition, and the influences were clear as day and really awe-inspiring to behold to see this band go from the Black album to this record, there was still enough there to make it a fairly diverse and dynamic record. As soon as I heard the single The Violence from this record right here, Like a House on Fire, I was a bit skeptical. So I feel like I have already established the opinion that I don't necessarily hate this hard rock style. Bands progress, and I appreciate the fact that they have been able to progress in a way that they're continuously evolving. Now, I do have a separate opinion on them just kind of cutting a lot of their original material that got them to where they are from their set list and more so focusing on their current image, and I understand that's their brand, but there are still plenty of Asking Alexandria fans from the past era that would love to hear you play some of your old material, even if it's only 1, 2, 3 tracks out of what, 13, 14, because you've headlined many shows. As singles continued to release, 5 were released in anticipation in total for this record. What was being exposed was a much more sanitized style, much more glitzy style, a very arena-sized style that you could hear on rock radio. By far, I think there is a lot less here that feels like their self-titled record even, because this record takes much more of a melodic tone, and I don't want to discredit the heaviness, because there is heaviness to be found here, even in Danny Worsnop's vocals. I mean, I feel like some people on this channel are probably going to expect me to go into this record, rip it to shreds, talk about how fucking terrible it is, talk about how the compositions are bad, but instrumentally, while a lot of these things can seem very derivative and feel a lot like mainstream rock and sometimes not in the best way possible, some of these riffs are catchy, they're tasty, the guitar licks are strong, the drums are monstrous, they're towering. Danny seems like a rock frontman of the past. The very first track, the self-titled track, has one of the punchiest choruses that Asking Alexandria has ever made and rivals some of the best of what was on their self-titled record. And considering that record was pretty much entirely hard rock, that's an impressive feat, I'm sorry. The production is well handled. It can feel a little bit garish and overwrought, such as on the track Down to Hell, which it's such a shame because I do enjoy this track overall. I just think it really is a little bit too much. It's so blown out. It is very loud. But for the most part, production-wise, this is strong. I would even say stronger than their self-titled record. I feel like they were ironing out the details and some of the production tactics didn't work there, but they really are taking some more rock risks with a very rock-centric sound that is a lot like the contemporary. You got the radio announcer effect, you have the whisper-type vocal effect, you have so much thrown on it, you have distortion thrown on it at different times. Sometimes they'll put a little bit of reverb and a little bit of echo on it. At times there feels like there's more compression on Danny's vocals, and sometimes they are left to get some more expansive space. It really just varies and depends from track to track. When I say this record's good, it's good for all of the reasons that it presents right in your face. What's good about it is pretty front-facing. It's very blunt, and the things that are bad are pretty evident as well. The verses can feel very derivative. Sometimes the lyrics can come off a little bit cringy. They don't seem nearly as relatable and nearly as topical and nearly as emotionally powerful as a lot of Asking Alexandria's more mature works that they have come through with. I wouldn't necessarily say their early material, but on their self-titled record, there were a lot of really personal feelings, a lot of really dark storytelling that really got to me. Tracks like the aforementioned Eve and Room 138 really got to me, and even Alone in a Room and Hopelessly Hopeful, it really got to me. And Vultures, these emotionally poignant tracks where carefully and flawlessly Danny was painting this character portrait of how flawed he was and telling these stories of his life in such a powerful way that a lot of times I don't really feel here. Because while he's roaring over these buff, gruff, macho type hard rock smashing riffs, a lot of these tracks revolve around these same things. Either the lone wolf type mentality of the world not understanding and just putting two middle fingers up and saying fuck you to the world, either that or it's just talking about the world at large and I guess the flaws that Asking Alexandria sees in the world, fed through the lens of a very kind of overwrought hard rock style. But when this record hits, it hits hard, it hits good. Even though I do think that Down to Hell is one of the most overblown tracks from a production standpoint, the mix is so much, it's so loud, it's so bassy, it's so resonant, and in all the worst ways possible. You can't deny that energy. It's so high octane, it gets your blood pumping, it gets you excited, especially in these verses. They're so hard hitting. And it's not something that always pans out, unfortunately. They try their very best to replicate these styles, or I should say duplicate these styles throughout this record, but on tracks like the single Anti-Socialist, I just feel like it falls so flat on so many levels. How could some of these tracks feel like there's so much production going behind them and such a big budget behind them and so much thought going into them, but still seem so underwritten from both a compositional standpoint, a vocal standpoint, and when you pair that with some odd mixing choices at times, like on the track Anti-Socialist, it just comes out sounding a little bit iffy. And that's what this record is, iffy, shaky, it's so-and-so. A lot of times when Danny does hit a high vocal, when he does go very loud and he roars over a mix, he just gets kind of faded out. They usually put him so far in the background that you can't hear the full encompassing effect of his vocals. And obviously, while consistency is a good thing with a record, cohesiveness is a strong thing, a strong suit, it's a positive. They turn it into a negative by making a lot of these tracks some of their least dynamic. Whereas even the self-titled record had different elements going into it, whether we're talking electronic elements, whether we're talking acoustic elements, whether we're talking about different ways to present the hard rock and melodic style, whether you're talking about the post-hardcore elements, some of the trace elements of metalcore. So much of that is either in so few trace elements that it's forgettable or just devoid entirely. It's so crazy to think that the self-titled record had people saying that this band was so far gone that they would never come back, and this is so different from their self-titled record. I was in a discussion with someone about this record, and I said that it was desaturated. I said it was a watered-down version of their self-titled record, and I had a lot of people agree with me, a lot of fans of Asking Alexandria, and I think that is unfortunate because I have nothing but respect for the band, and while a lot of these ideas do land, I think that for the most part, this record comes out sounding fairly weak. It sounds overblown on way too many occasions, and I think there are some good ideas here just poorly executed. It might be the type of thing that grows on people, it might be the type of thing that new fans will find a lot of common ground in, and I am sure there are going to be a lot of Asking Alexandria fans that do enjoy this record for what it is, and I do as well. It just feels alien. It feels like they're trying so hard, they're pushing so hard, they're trying to get it down your throat, they're trying to force feed you this sound, and they're missing the emotional resonance that they even had on their last record. I have no problem with them playing in this style. In fact, I embrace it, I enjoy enjoy it. I like their artistic progression. I just think this is inferior to their self-titled record and probably my least favorite. I'm going to be giving this album a 6 out of 10. And that is a wrap. Have you heard this new Asking Alexandria record, Like a House on Fire? If you have, let me know in the comment section below what you thought about it. I would love to discuss a record with you. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Denis Stoff, review guy, and I'm signing off soon.